Hey everyone, let's try this again. As soon as I sat down to hit record, it started storming, and then I lost power. It flickered for a second. Midwest, shout out Midwest America. Anyway, today I'm going to be talking about the Battleclade kill team from the Adeptus Mechanicus. This isn't going to be a how to play kill team tutorial guide, so it might be a little bit confusing if you haven't played or you're unfamiliar with kill team. There's a ton of videos out there about how to play it, and I might make a video of it in the future. My power just flickered again. We'll see how far we get through this video. I'm starting a kill team league, and I'm taking the Battleclade. So it's more of a going over the rules, sort of a reminder for myself, and maybe some tips and tricks for you if you are the lightning. This is crazy. This weather is nuts. Like, it was beautiful 5 seconds ago, and now it's insane. Anyway. So I'm starting Kill Team League. I'm taking the Battleclade with me, and I've played them the most out of the 5 or 6 teams that I have, I think. So I'm going to be going over some tips and tricks. I'll be looking at the data sheets, talking about the strategy and firefight ploys, each operative's special abilities, the equipment, usually what I take. Same thing with TAC Ops, which are like the secondary missions of Kill Team. What I usually take, I'll run through all of the options for them, and I'll show you the 2 that I usually play. Anyway, let's get started. I've got more pictures and screenshots and stuff, and then I'll be doing some voiceover for it. So this won't be a super long, you won't have to look at my mug the entire time. And there's the tornado sirens. That's cool. That are warnings. This is gonna be fun. It's gonna be a good night. Stay tuned, and I'll let you know about some other stuff coming up in the future. Alright, kick things off, the team composition. We've got 10 operatives. One of those is the techno-archaeologist, and then the servitor underseer. Both of these are tech priests. And then you get 8 Battleclade operatives, which are the servitors. You've got your specialists, the auto-proxy servitor, the breacher, the techno-medic. I don't know why they put that at the bottom. And then the 3 regular combat servitors and the 2 gun servitors. I built all of them with one option each, so I do have one incendiing igniter, a melt-a-gun, a phosphor blaster, and the 2 big gun guys. One of them has an arc rifle, and the other one the heavy bolter. The archetypes for the team are infiltration and recon. That just tells you what kind of TAC ops you can run, and sort of an idea of how you would want to play them. The faction rule for the Battleclade is the Noospheric Network. Servitors are yoked to their tech priest masters by an invisible web of control. This Noospheric network enables servitors to be rapidly reorganized, transferring processing power to other thralls who might better serve the tech priest's immediate wishes. While some are left to conform to their basic programming, others are instructed with key tasks that must be fulfilled for the glory of the machine god. So once during each Battleclade servitor operative's activation, before or after it performs an action, you can spend 1 AP to transfer power. AP is action points. After the activation, you can network counteract with one other friendly Battleclade servitor operative before your opponent activates. Whenever you network counteract with a friendly operative, select its order, and then perform 1 AP action for free. Cannot move more than 2 inches during that activation. Once it's done so, your opponent then activates as normal. An operative cannot perform transfer power or network counteract if it has an APL stat of less than 2. Network counteract is a counteraction, but the operative doesn't need to be expended with an engage order to do it. That means if they're ready when they network counteract, they can still be activated as normal later in the turning point. An operative that does network counteract cannot do so again or counteract during the same turning point. So essentially the way counteract works in the game is if you have a different number of operatives on your team, if you have less operatives on your team than your opponent, and your turn would normally be skipped because it is a back and forth, you activate an operative, they activate an operative. If you would normally be skipped because they have more operatives than you would be able to get a counteract where you could do one action. Essentially, this team overwrites that, and you can bounce between different operatives, set them up during their activation, and then during your next activation, bounce back over to the guy you just moved and take a shot when your opponent is like, oh hey, they've already activated, they won't be able to do anything. Gotcha, I can actually do something here. Getting into the operatives, the first leader of the group is the techno-archaeologist. He's got 3 action points, 6-inch move, 3-up save, and 9 wounds. He's rocking an eradication pistol, 8-inch range, 1-inch devastating 3, which is crazy. I have a video, I'll show you about that. And lethal 5-up on his weapons, on his ranged weapons. The servo arc claw, which has severe and shock, which, depending on your faction equipment, you'll have on almost all of your melee weapons. His abilities are the Seeker of Divine Arcana, and he can do Omni Scanner for 1 AP during his activation. Seeker of Divine Arcana is a strategic gambit, so this happens in the strategy phase of the game. You can change his order, and/or it can immediately perform free Omni Scanner action, fallback, place marker, pickup marker, reposition, or mission action. If it's fallback or reposition and he isn't carrying a marker, it must end that move either within your drop zone, or if that is impossible, then as close to it as possible, or with an objective marker or one of your mission markers within its control range. So I'll show you what that kind of looks like now. So did it kind of backwards here, but you can switch the order. Normally you'd be on engage and you would want to hide, so you can switch it to conceal. Or you can move closer to a mission objective, or closer to one of your mission markers, if you're not carrying a marker already. Now during that gambit, you could also do the Omni Scanner action for free. So you select an enemy operative that is visible or within 8 inches of this operative to gain an Omni Scanner token. So then, whenever anybody on your team is shooting, fighting, or retaliating against that operative that's been omni-scanned, your weapons have the Ceaseless Weapon rule, which gives you some rerolls with some restrictions. Moving on to the second leader, the Servitor Underseer. He's got the same profile as the Techno-Archaeologist. 3 APL, 6-inch move, 3-up save, 9 wounds. He's rocking a master-crafted radium pistol with 8-inch range, balanced, and rending. So balance, you'll reroll 1 die. Rending means if you roll a crit, you can turn one of your other successes into a crit as well. He's got 2 abilities. One of them is the Data Coronal Accumulator, and he also has the Network Override. The Network Override's what you're going to be using more often than not. It lets you, because normally in the faction rules you can only network counteract between servitors. This is your tech priest that lets you do network counteract within 6 inches of himself, or the auto proxy servitor, which we will get to in just a moment. And because he has 3 APL, he can do this twice during his activation. So he can network counteract to one guy for 1 AP, and then spend another AP and network counteract to a second servitor, and then still do something else. Because of the range requirement on him and the auto proxy, I always think it's a good idea to bring a comms device as one of your equipment pieces, but we'll get to that in a minute. Now, Data Coronal Accumulator is his other support skill. So, within 6 inches of himself or the auto proxy again. You figure out how many of your operatives are within that range, so both of them. Then if those operatives are contesting objectives, you count up the number of objectives that are being contested, and then you roll a d3, and if you roll less than or equal to the number of contested objectives, you gain a command point. It sounds a little bit complicated, but pretty much if you're contesting one objective, you've got 30% chance, 2, 60% chance, all 3 objectives, 100% chance to gain an extra command point from this ability. So the example I'm showing here is the Underseer has a couple guys who are within 6 inches, and then I gave the comms device to the auto proxy servitor who's up on the vantage point. That comms device boosts his range to 9 inches, so then he is within range of the dude on the left and the dude on the right, meaning that all 3 of the objective markers are being contested. So when you roll a d3, no matter the result, it'll be less than equal to that amount, meaning you'll gain a CP guaranteed. Speaking of the auto proxy servitor, this is your Underseer's, helper, so a couple of his things bounce off of him. The auto proxy servitor has the same profile as the other combat servitors, so he has 2 APL, 5-inch move, 4 up save, and 8 wounds. He doesn't have a ranged weapon, but he does have a taser goad with lethal 5 up and shock. Shock, when you hit with a crit, it will discard one of your opponent's successes in battle, which is pretty crazy. He's got 2 abilities. One of them is a passive ability. The other one, he has to spend one of his AP to perform. The first one, the kill an eye. So whenever anybody on your team is taking a shot at an enemy that this guy can see, their ranged weapons have the saturate weapon rule, which means they can't retain cover saves. His other ability, the Gaze of the Omnissiah, pretty much he marks somebody, and whenever somebody on your team is shooting at that opponent, they cannot be obscured, so if they pop a smoke grenade, that won't make a difference, and their weapons have Seek Light, so they can ignore cover saves if they're behind light terrain, which is a good move if you mark them and then move out of line of sight from them with this guy. They can still get this bonus until the end of the turning point. That brings us to the Breacher servitor. He's got a standard servitor profile. 2 shooting profiles on his las cutter, a 2-inch at close range that hits piercing 2, and then the 6-inch range at short range, both of those lethal 5-ups, and then his hydraulic pincer and las cutter in melee that has lethal 5-ups. His big deal is that he can breach, so if you're at a wall that you normally can't get through, you can spend an action and just bust through that wall pretty much. That brings us to the Technomedic servitor. He's got standard servitor profile. No ranged weapon, but he has a servo-chirurgic claw with rending. If you remember that if you roll a crit, you get another crit with that. His abilities are similar to any other medic that you could find on a kill team. Mechano-suture array, where if you are within 3 inches of a friendly operative who is about to be incapacitated, he can save them with 1 wound remaining, and then they can make a dash closer to him. And he also has Expedient Repair, where if one of his buddies is within control range, they can regain D3 plus 3 lost wounds, so he heals them up. Instead of having like a bed bag, he has a toolbox because he's fixing up servitors. They're mostly robots. It's pretty fun. And now we are at our gun servitors. They have the same profile, except they're big, beefier boys, so they have 11 wounds each instead of 8. One of them has a heavy arc rifle, and the other has a heavy bolter. I only included the sweeping profile because it gives you Torrent 1, and I think it would be more interesting to read the weapon skills on those. The focused version doesn't have Torrent, but it gets you an extra attack, so you have 5 shots. They don't have anything special, they're just servitors with big old guns. Which finally brings us to our combat servitors, regular servitor profile. They do have 3 ranged weapon options. I couldn't find a picture online of the Melt-A-Gun one, but it is the best. Meltas are really strong in kill team right now. So that was the Incendine Igniter on the left, and the Phosphor Blaster on the right. The Flamer on the left, and then the Phosphor Blaster. Nothing special with these guys. They're the regular grunts of the Battleclade. Getting into the faction equipment now, we're starting with the Covert Guises. After revealing this equipment option, roll a d3. As a strategic gambit in the first turning point, a number of friendly Battleclade operatives equal to the result that are wholly within your drop zone can immediately perform a free reposition action, but must end that move wholly within 3 inches of your drop zone. The Techno-Archaeologist operative cannot perform more than 1 reposition action in the strategy phase of the first turning point. This is not my favorite equipment. I've taken it twice, and both times I rolled a 1 on the D3, and really it just gives you a little, extra 3 inches of movement at the beginning of the game. It's not my favorite. Typically, I drop it for comms devices. The next 3 I do always take because they are incredibly helpful, starting with electromantic capacitors. Friendly operatives, melee weapons have the shock weapon rule, if you remember. That's when you strike with a crit, it discards an opponent's normal success in melee. And whenever you are retaliating, which is when the opponent initiates the melee fight with you, the weapons also have severe, which means if you don't roll a crit, you can turn one of your normals into a crit. The neurocyclic reserve cells, so once per turning point, whenever you transfer power, you can use this rule. And if you do, you can transfer power for 0 AP. This takes precedence over the normal Noospheric network rules. So just once per turn, when you are counteracting, you can also still get, instead of activating one servitor and just repositioning him and bouncing to somebody else, you can reposition him and then shoot somebody and then bounce to somebody else because it doesn't cost that extra AP. And then the concealed apparatus. So once per battle, one of your combat servitors or gun servitors can use another weapon option on its data card that it didn't select for the battle. So usually I do use this. I did build my combat servitors so they have one of each weapon, and if my opponent is smart, they take out my Melta combat servitor because Meltas are really good, and then once per battle, if I'm shooting at him with something else, one of my other combat servitors, that turn, I can just be like, oh, you know what, he reconfigures, and it's a Melta gun for this turn, and I'm shooting it with a Melta, and it is crazy. I love it. And like I said, usually I swap out covert guises with a comms device, so I can pick that up. Usually I'll give it to my auto proxy servitor, but while they have that marker, it adds 3 inches to the distance requirements of support rules. So like I was saying with the Underseer earlier, if you're within 6 inches of him or the auto proxy, you can do stuff. If one of them is holding the comms device, it bumps that up to a 9-inch range. which comes in incredibly handy as we get into strategy ploys. I'll kick it off with the New Spheric Possession, since that is a support skill, and the comms device boosts it, so whenever servitor operative is within 6 of the auto proxy or the underseer, then their weapons have the accurate 1 weapon rule, which means you automatically have a normal success on your attack. So with that comms device, that could boost it, and if you spread those two out, the auto proxy and the underseer, you can have a pretty wide bubble across the map and get a good majority of your dudes to have just accurate 1. Incantation of the Iron Soul I use a lot because it is a defensive tactic. So whenever an attack dice inflicts damage of 3 or more on a friendly Battleclade operative, roll a d6 and on a 4 up, subtract 1 from that inflicted damage, which sometimes makes a huge difference, sometimes not really, because they only have 8 wounds for the most part. Duty of Reclamation is good if you're really fighting over those mission objectives. Once per action, you can use the command reroll Firefight ploy for 0 CP if the attack or defense dice was rolled for a friendly operative that contests an objective marker or one of your mission markers. Once per action, meaning if you're getting shot at and you fail one, you can reroll. If you're getting shot at by a different operative, you can re-roll. If you are shooting somebody or fighting somebody, you can re-roll. It comes in handy. And then prioritize acquisition. So whenever you select an objective marker or one of your mission markers, and then determining control of that marker, treat total APL stat of friendly operatives as 1 higher. And then whenever one of your operatives is within 3 inches of that marker, add 1 to the attack stat of its melee weapons up to a maximum of 4, which is good for your regular combat servitors and your gun servitors. I believe the other specialists and your heavier melee guys already have 4 melee attacks. So it's good if your enemy is already taking down your specialists, and you just have your regular servitors fighting it out to the end. That one comes in clutch. On to the firefight ploys. We've got Autopheric Supplication. So use this firefight ploy when an operative is shooting a friendly tech priest. At the start of the roll attack dice step until the end of the sequence, ignore the piercing weapon rule, which is really good because a lot of teams have piercing of some kind on their guns, and that sucks. It removes your save dice, you just can't even save. It's pretty brutal. The next one, Remote Access. Use this ploy during a tech priest's activation. Once during that activation, you can use one of the following rules. An operative doesn't require a marker to be within its control range to perform a mission action that usually requires it. Instead, the marker must be within 4 inches of it, with no enemies contesting it. So if you're just 4 inches away from something and you need to tap a point for an objective, super handy. Or if you're playing on close quarters like Tomb World or Gallo Dark, you can do the Operate Hatch action 4 inches away instead of being right up on it, which is kind of cool. You can use it, open a door from a distance, and then have your dudes charge in without having to stop and open the door. Next up, we've got System Exorcism. So when you would activate an operative and your opponent has given them some sort of debuff, like poison, or they hit you with a stun grenade, so you have -1 APL. Goremongers have some sort of blood token thing, pain tokens, things, various debuffs. You can use this firefight ploy and remove it. It doesn't let it regain lost wounds or ignore the effects of being injured, of course. And then last up is Servile Surrogacy, which is pretty sweet. I like this one a lot. So when you have a tech priest who's being shot at, or somebody charges him and fights him, If you have a servitor that is visible and within 3 inches of your tech priest, you can basically redirect your opponent's attack into the servitor instead of you. So it's handy for, I think they call it a get down Mr. President thing, a bodyguard type ploy, which will keep your tech priests alive because they don't have a ton of wounds. They do have a better save, but once you lose your tech priests, then a lot of your versatility is gone with this team. So you want to keep them alive. Man, this video is getting long in the tooth. I did not expect it to. Anyway, this brings us to our attack ops. Remember at the beginning when I said archetypes were recon and infiltration? This determines your secondary missions, aka your attack ops. So, let's get into those, starting with plant devices. So this is a 1 AP mission action. You plant a device on one of the objectives, essentially bugging it to gather information on your enemy, because they're going to be moving towards the objective markers too. At the end of each turning point after the first, if your opponent's objective marker, so the one in there, the closest to their deployment zone, has a device token, you score 1 VP. For each other objective marker enemy operatives contest that has one of your device tokens, you score 1 VP. So it's one of the easier ones. If you can get to the furthest objective from you and put a device on it, you're going to be scoring a VP every round. If you can get a device planted on each of the objectives and then kind of back off and let your opponent contest them, you're gonna be maxing that one out. I play that one quite a bit. It's just a matter of giving up or thinking of sneaky ways of scoring on the crit op. Next up is Steal Intelligence. So this is more of the kill-focused one. Whenever you incapacitate an enemy operative, before it's removed, you drop an intelligence mission marker within its control range. Friendly operatives can then go pick up that marker, which can be ignored if they're carrying one other marker, or they can carry 2 intelligence markers at once. So at the end of each turning point after the first, if any friendly operatives are carrying intelligence markers, you score 1 VP. And then at the end of the battle, for each of your intelligence markers that friendly operatives are carrying, you score 1 VP. So battle round 2, battle round 3, if you're carrying any intelligence markers, you only score 1 VP, so you'll get 2 there. And then at the end of the battle, hopefully you're carrying 4 markers total to max it out for 6. I believe 6 is the max amount of points that you can get in each category of scoring. I could be wrong, though. I don't know. Last up for the infiltration tac ops is Track Enemy. This one is the super sneaky one. An enemy operative is considered tracked if it's a valid target for a friendly operative within 6 inches of it. The friendly operative must have a conceal order and can't be a valid target for the enemy operative that it's attempting to track. Cannot be in control range of enemy operatives. So at the end of each turning point after the first, if one enemy operative is being tracked, you score 1 VP, or 2 VP if it's the 4th turning point. If 2 or more enemy operatives are being tracked, you score 2 VP. You can't score more than 2 VP per turning point. So this one, you want to be sneaky, you want to stay away, you don't want to engage in the enemy. I haven't played it, and I don't know if I would like playing it. It's very position heavy. So going into the recon tac ops, we'll go with the opposite, which is Scout Enemy Movement. So that is a mission action. You scout the enemy. They have to be more than 6 inches away from your operative. They can't be on an engage order. That enemy is then tracked, or monitored rather, until the ready step of the next strategy phase. So as long as the one that's being monitored is visible to any of your friendly operatives, then you score a VP. You can do that twice per turning point. You can only score 2 per turn. Next up is retrieval. This one is the objective-focused one. It's a mission action. You get to the objective, and you pick up a retrieval marker from it. You score a VP when that objective marker is first searched, and then you score VP for the markers that you're carrying at the end of the battle. The markers can only be searched once, so the idea is you run up, search it, hold on to that marker, and then make sure you have guys holding those markers at the end of the battle. The last one for recon is flank. I have not played this one because it seemed like a lot of work. It's probably not that hard, but anyway, you divide the kill zone into 2 flanks, left and right. When you have one of your dudes wholly within that side and wholly within your opponent's territory, which is the opposite half of the board from where you start, then you contest it, and you control it if your total APL stat is higher than that of enemy operatives. So at the end of the turning point, for each flank that you control, you score 1 VP. If friendly operatives also controlled that flank at the end of the previous turning point, excluding the first, you score 2 VP instead. You cannot score more than 2 VP from this op per turning point. So it's a positioning and having more bodies in certain spots than your enemy. It's not really my cup of tea, to be honest. And with that, I think I've reached the end of everything I wanted to talk about with the Battleclade. I'd like to put together Hunter Clade kill team as well, but that means buying 2 or 3 boxes of AdMech minis. And after building and painting these guys, I realized Adeptus Mechanicus has some of the toughest models to build and paint. They gave me a hard time. 11th edition 40k comes out next weekend, which is super exciting. I hope you guys are all excited. So yeah, take care of yourselves, and I will see you later. Bye.